What's going on, guys? Stevie from the Minimasters here, and today we're gonna check out some tube bending. So here she is, guys. This is an Eastwood tube bender with a 90-degree die in there. Here's my first experiment. It's just a tad bit past 90, which is why we're testing it out, because I've got a whole bunch of other piping here, and it's all going towards a headache rack for one of our company trucks. And of course, the company bought this lovely bender. So I'm just bringing you guys along because I'm no expert in tube bending. As you can clearly see, I'm trying to, get the hang of it, but it can't be too hard. I have my welder, which you've seen me use many times, and I can lay down some pretty decent welds for not being in that trade. So let's see what I can put together here for you guys. So guys, the basics of a tube bender, as I've discovered through directions and just playing around with this thing, clearly I figured something out, is you feed your pipe in through one side and it goes up against this flat following die, okay? So it's flat, straight, okay? And it goes through and it clamps to the very tip of your forming die, which is this 90-degree die right here. And then there's this band that holds it in place, and then you have this temporary pin you can pull. This pin right here connects the die to this lever, which is then hooked up to this ratcheting system, which is then controlled by your main lever here. So I've already pulled this number here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna push this back, and I like to go back as far as I can. You'll push this guy in here, and you'll line up the next set of teeth, okay? So we're in there, okay? Now, hand on there, and I'm gonna pull. So I can tell you, it's just a little bit tough to do one-handed. It's a real back workout too. And as we go over, you'll see by degrees, we'll move the pipe. You get about somewhere between 5 and 10 a pull. Now, right there, we're reading about 24 degrees, but I'm still holding the lever back. So watch what happens when I let go of the lever here. Boom. So we're now back to about 21. And that's because the pipe has memory and resistance. So of course, it's gonna wanna spring back a bit. So the tricky part about bending is you have to compensate for that and pull past wherever your die is, or pull past whatever your number is. Or you can actually set this little tab thing here. Now, of course, what I do is after I do pull the pipe and I get the desired, angle, I usually go check it. I have a drywall square sitting over there. It's pretty straight. So once we pull that main number, we'll go back, pull the lever back again, push this in, line up the next tooth there, and we go again. So here it goes. Alrighty. So, okay, 30 degrees. Let go of the lever. And we're back to, looks about 17. Okay? So that's what you keep doing by degrees until you run out of teeth here. In which case, then what you do is you pull this pin, push this lever section back, and you'll actually put this pin through the die, through that hole. And that's how you keep ratcheting it around, despite the fact that you have a limited number of teeth there. So I'm actually going to do that because eventually when I do pull the pin, you'll notice we'll be very far into this angle, and you get to see how it is. So like I said, guys, here we are. I have this fully ratcheted out, and I have run out of teeth. And we're only at 61 degrees. So like I said, you're going to pull your teeth out here, so move your lever over. And you're going to see that this can be loosened. And then pull your pin, push it over, and there we are. So now I've gotten so much more teeth to work with now, so I can continue my bend. Now, so far I have found that I've only had to move it 2 hole positions to make 90 degrees. So you can see back there I have yet another hole, which must be like if you want to pull it just a little past 90, but considering this is just a 90 degree die. Don't think I'll ever get that far. So I'm going to finish out this angle, and then it's going to be to actually tackle the project since I have my practice angle. So jumping ahead here, here is my finished experimental piece, I guess we'll call it, which, just so you know, good to save because this is where they come in handy. So like I said, I am not a professional at this. This is my first go at tube bending. And so I'm reaching the very difficult task of how do I make this the right width, okay? Because it's not like a perfect 90-degree angle where you measure, welds. It's not that simple. Your bend takes up material, and that can really throw you off if you don't know how to calculate it. So what I did is I went over here and I measured this angle. So I did 6 inches out this way, 6 inches out this way, and made these marks. Now I use a square to get them just right. I took my test piece here and I did the same thing. Now again, this is very rudimentary, but I think it will work. So what I'm gonna do here is I have this lined up here, and I'm just gonna keep moving this over until this thing is 51.5 inches wide. So that's where I have it set right there. And then what I'll go and do is make my mark right here on the pipe. Now I know I have to set this in the bender, and I have to line the die up with this area so that when I bend it, it will always, the inside, or I should say the outside to outside measurement will be that 51.5 inches that I need. Again, probably not how they do it, but this is what I have to do until I figure it out. So here we are, guys. Here is the loop that's going to be used for a headache rack. And if you can kind of tell, it didn't quite work out the way I wanted to. So the first problem here is both ends aren't level. So this end's up off the floor when that end's flat, vice versa, okay? So right there, I know I'm going to have to cut the tube right here and lay them both flat and actually weld them back. I'm sure the professionals have a way to avoid this entirely, but by the time I realized, I had it in the bender, hadn't started bending, I realized that was going to be a problem. And what's interesting enough is my original test piece here, it's very slight, okay? And I just eyeballed that. So maybe if I just had stuck with my gut, it would have come out better. But of course, I worried about it, and I tried coming up with a method. It didn't really work. I tried running a line over there in Sharpie, and then I tried running it over here and lining it up. No go. So anyway, problem number one. Problem number two, I pulled the 90 past, so we have probably about like a 95-degree angle here, and I must have bumped the little angle thing on there, and that's what happened. So right there, I know I'm also going to have to cut some slits in here and bend this out, and then weld them back to correct that part. Okay. Now I could just take my 90 test angle here, because this one is good, and I could just take this and weld this into place, in which case there'd just be a weld here and a weld there, you know. But I think I'm going to just try to repair what I have just so I can keep the test 90. The good news is, remember I said I had to keep it at 51.5. Now, of course, I have the tape measure upside down, but you can clearly see if I hadn't pulled it past 90, we clearly would have been at that 51.5 mark, which is the correct width that I measured that needs to be for this headache rack. So my measuring method did work, that I mentioned earlier. So that part is awesome. So there you go, guys. My first time ever using a tube bender. And as you can see, it wasn't a complete and total success. But the important thing is I had fun, and I really did enjoy this. Every time you learn a new trade or you're learning one, it opens up a whole new area of exploration and adventure, and I just love that. So you're gonna follow my adventures in tube bending here, because clearly I don't have this down. So those of you that do know how to do tube bending or know a thing or two, please comment below about tips and tricks to help me out, and that way other people reading through the comments can find your tips and actually learn something from this. So that's all for me, guys. Hit the subscribe icon over here. Check out some of my videos. I'm Stevie from the Minimasters. Thanks for watching.